The morning started like any other February day in suburban Minneapolis. Gray skies, threatening snow, coffee brewing in our 12-year-old machine that I kept meaning to replace, and my wife Lisa sitting at our kitchen table, looking like death warmed over. I should have been paying attention then. Should have noticed the way her hands trembled around her coffee mug, how her eyes darted away when I looked at her. But I was scrolling through emails on my phone, already mentally preparing for another day at Henderson and Associates, where I worked as a senior project manager. "I need help, Dan." Her voice cut through my morning fog. I set down my phone, a small miracle according to her usual complaints about my device addiction, and really looked at my wife for the first time in probably weeks. Lisa had always been beautiful to me. When we met 15 years ago at that terrible karaoke bar on University Avenue, she'd been singing badly "Don't Stop Believin'" with her girlfriends. Her auburn hair had been longer then, reaching past her shoulders, and her green eyes had sparkled with mischief when she caught me staring. Now, at 38, she kept her hair in a practical shoulder-length cut, and those eyes were rimmed with dark circles that makeup couldn't quite hide. "What's wrong, honey?" I reached across our worn oak table, a yard sale find from our first year of marriage that we'd refinished together, back when we did things like that. "I haven't been sleeping well for months." She wrapped both hands around her mug as if trying to absorb its warmth. At first, I thought it was just stress, but it's getting worse. Months? I felt a stab of guilt. How had I not noticed my wife hadn't been sleeping for months? "Why didn't you say something sooner?" She shrugged, a gesture so unlike the confident woman I'd married. "You've been swamped with the Henderson project. I didn't want to add to your stress." The Henderson project. 6 months of 18-hour days, weekend work, and constant phone calls. We were implementing a new inventory management system for a chain of sporting goods stores, and every hiccup became my emergency. I'd missed Mia's school play last month, had to leave Tyler's baseball game in the third inning. And apparently, I'd missed my wife's descent into chronic insomnia. "Lisa, you're never adding to my stress. You're my wife. If something's wrong, I want to know." I squeezed her hand, noticing how cold her fingers felt. "Have you talked to Dr. Peterson?" Dr. Peterson had been Lisa's primary care physician for 8 years. A no-nonsense woman in her 50s who'd seen us through everything from Lisa's difficult pregnancy with Tyler to my herniated disc 2 years ago. "That's what I wanted to talk to you about." Lisa pulled her hand back, wrapping it around her mug again. "She wants me to do overnight sleep studies. Once a week for a month to start." Sleep studies? My knowledge of them was limited to what I'd seen on medical dramas. "Aren't those where they hook you up to a bunch of machines?" Essentially, yes. They monitor brain waves, breathing patterns, muscle movements, heart rhythm, everything that happens while you sleep. She finally met my eyes. "Dr. Peterson says my case is complicated. She needs multiple readings to get a proper diagnosis." Once a week seems intensive. Is that normal? Something flickered across her face. Annoyance? Fear? It was gone before I could identify it. "She says some cases require more comprehensive monitoring. The University Sleep Center has a new program for chronic insomnia patients." "When would you start?" "This Thursday night. 3 days away." I did mental calculations. I could handle the kids' schedules, maybe work from home on Fridays to be here when she got back. "Whatever you need, honey. We'll make it work." I stood and walked around the table, wrapping my arms around her from behind. She tensed for a moment before relaxing into my embrace. "Do you want me to drive you? Or come with you?" "No!" The response came too quick, too sharp. She must have realized it because she softened her tone. "I mean, they said it's important to maintain normal routines before the study. and someone needs to stay with the kids. Of course. That makes sense. I kissed the top of her head, breathing in the familiar vanilla scent of her shampoo mixed with something else, a perfume I didn't recognize. When had she started wearing perfume? I better get ready for work, I said, but I didn't move immediately. Something felt off, like a picture hanging slightly crooked. You couldn't quite put your finger on what was wrong, but you knew it wasn't right. Dan? She twisted to look up at me. Thank you for understanding. Always, I said, and meant it. That evening, I watched Lisa more carefully. She seemed nervous, checking her phone constantly during dinner. When Tyler asked her to help with his multiplication tables, she snapped at him before immediately apologizing. Mom's just tired, buddy, I explained, shooting Lisa a concerned look. Is that why you have to go to the hospital? Tyler asked, pencil poised over his worksheet. To learn how to sleep better? It's not exactly a hospital, Lisa said, her voice strained. It's a special clinic where doctors watch how people sleep. That's weird, Mia declared, not looking up from her phone. At 12, everything was either weird, stupid, or unfair. Can't they just give you Ambien or something? Mia, put the phone away at dinner, I said automatically. And it's more complicated than just taking pills. Whatever. She slumped in her chair, radiating preteen disdain. Can I go to Sophia's house on Thursday? Her mom said she could drive us to the mall. Ask your father, Lisa said quietly. I won't be here. After dinner, I found Lisa in our bedroom, staring at the overnight bag she'd pulled from the closet. It was the same one she'd used for her hospital stay when Tyler was born. You okay? She startled, then forced a smile. Just thinking about what to pack. The information sheet said comfortable clothes, but I'm not sure what that means in a medical setting. Probably just pajamas and regular clothes for the next day, I suggested. Want help? No, I've got it. She turned away, opening her dresser drawer. Could you make sure Tyler practices his violin? He's been slacking. I recognized the dismissal and retreated. Lisa had always been private about certain things. She still locked the bathroom door, even when I was the only one home. After 15 years of marriage, you learned which boundaries to respect. Wednesday night, I worked late, trying to get ahead so I could be available if Lisa needed anything after her sleep study. When I finally crawled into bed at 1 a.m., she was curled on her side, facing away from me. I spooned against her back, and she stirred. Sorry, didn't mean to wake you. It's okay, she mumbled. What time is it? Late. Go back to sleep. Funny, she said, but there was no humor in it. That's the problem. Thursday arrived with a winter storm warning and 6 inches of snow already on the ground. I worked from home, juggling conference calls while making sure the driveway was clear. Lisa seemed distracted all day, starting tasks and abandoning them half-finished. She'd begun making cookies with Tyler after school, then suddenly remembered she needed to pack. But Mom, we haven't put them in the oven yet, Tyler protested. Dad can help you finish, she said, already heading upstairs. I took over cookie duty, helping Tyler shape the dough while Mia sat at the counter supposedly doing homework, but actually texting frantically. Dad, why does Mom have to stay overnight? Tyler asked, carefully placing chocolate chips on each cookie. When I went to the doctor for my ear, we came right home. This is different, buddy. They need to watch her while she sleeps to figure out why she's having trouble. Maybe she just needs a new mattress, he suggested, with 9-year-old logic. Jake's mom got one of those memory foam ones, and she says she sleeps great now. Maybe, I agreed, sliding the cookie sheet into the oven. We'll see what the doctors say. Lisa came downstairs with her bag at 5:30, dressed in jeans and a sweater I didn't recognize. It was red, form-fitting, not her usual style. Is that new? I asked. She glanced down as if surprised by her own clothing. Oh, yeah. I bought it last week. Do you like it? You look great. And she did. The color brought out the warmth in her skin, made her eyes seem brighter despite the dark circles. Thanks. She set her bag by the door, then came to hug the kids goodbye. Be good for Dad, she said, holding Tyler a little longer than usual. No staying up past bedtime. Will you be back for breakfast? He asked. I'll be back before you leave for school, she promised, then moved to Mia. No going to Sophia's without permission, understand? Mom, I already asked. I know. Just be careful, okay? She hugged Mia, who tolerated it with minimal eye rolling. At the door, she turned to me. I'll text you when I get there and in the morning when I'm done. Drive carefully. Roads look nasty. I pulled her in for a kiss. Her lips were cold, trembling slightly. Hey, it's going to be okay. This is a good thing. Getting help. Right. Of course. She grabbed her bag, hesitated at the door. Dan, I love you. Love you too. I watched her Honda Civic pull out of the driveway, tires spinning slightly on the snow before finding traction. The taillights disappeared around the corner, and I closed the door against the cold. Dad, the cookies! Tyler yelled from the kitchen. I rushed to rescue them, slightly darker than ideal, but still edible. We spent the evening decorating them with frosting and sprinkles, making a cheerful mess. Mia even put her phone down long enough to create what she called cookie art, abstract designs that looked more like crime scenes than desserts. Lisa texted at 7:15. Here safe, getting set up now. Love you. I texted back. Good luck. Sweet dreams. Literally. She sent a heart emoji. That should have been another warning sign. Lisa thought emojis were juvenile, usually preferred complete sentences with proper punctuation, even in texts. After the kids were in bed, I sat in my home office trying to focus on spreadsheets for the Henderson project, but my mind kept wandering. What was happening at the sleep center right now? Were they attaching electrodes to Lisa's head? Was she comfortable? Could you even get real sleep with all those wires attached? I Googled University Sleep Center Minneapolis and found their website. It looked professional, medical, legitimate. They had a whole section on chronic insomnia, discussing treatment options and the importance of proper diagnosis. The overnight studies were described much as Lisa had said, comprehensive monitoring in a controlled environment. So why did I still feel uneasy? I pushed the feeling aside, worked until midnight, then crawled into our empty bed. The house felt different without Lisa. Too quiet, despite the furnace humming and the wind rattling the windows. I sprawled across the middle of the mattress, trying to enjoy the extra space, but ended up on my usual side anyway, leaving her spot empty. Sleep came eventually, fitful and filled with strange dreams about hospitals that turned into hotels that turned into places I didn't recognize. Friday morning arrived with weak sunlight filtering through snow clouds. I was up at 6, showering and getting ready for the day. Lisa texted at 6:45. All done, exhausted, home soon. I had breakfast ready when she walked in at 7:30. Scrambled eggs, toast, coffee strong enough to wake the dead. She looked exhausted, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, makeup smudged. How'd it go? I asked, pouring her coffee. Awful, she said, slumping into her chair. I barely slept. All those wires and the bed was uncomfortable, and they came in every hour to check something. But did they get the data they needed? They said so. She picked at her eggs. I have to go back next Thursday. Already? Seems fast. They want consistent readings. Her tone suggested the subject was closed. The kids thundered downstairs, Tyler still in his dinosaur pajamas, Mia dressed but grumpy. The morning routine took over permission slips signed, lunch money distributed, arguments about appropriate clothing for the weather. Mom, you look terrible, Mia observed with typical tact. Thanks, sweetheart. That's what every woman wants to hear. I just mean you look tired. Did the sleep place not work? It takes time, Lisa said. Medical things always do. After the kids left for school, Lisa went upstairs to shower. I cleaned up the kitchen, then headed to my office. But I couldn't concentrate. Something was nagging at me, like a song stuck in your head where you can only remember half the words. I pulled up our insurance website, figuring I should check what our coverage was for sleep studies. Might as well know what we were in for financially. I logged in, navigated to the claims section, scrolled through recent activity. Tyler's optometry appointment from last month. Mia's urgent care visit for her sprained ankle. My physical from December. But nothing for Lisa. Nothing about sleep studies or the university sleep center. I frowned, clicking through different sections. Maybe they hadn't processed it yet? But usually, there was at least a pending claim, especially for something scheduled in advance. I told myself insurance companies were notoriously slow. They'd probably submit claims after all 4 sessions were complete. It made sense. Sort of. But the unease grew. The next Thursday came quickly. Lisa seemed more anxious this time, snapping at everyone during dinner, checking her phone constantly. Everything okay? I asked as she packed her bag. Fine. Just not looking forward to another night of no sleep. Maybe it'll be better this time. You know what to expect now. Maybe. She zipped the bag with unnecessary force. The goodbye ritual repeated. Hugs for kids, kiss for me, promises to text. I watched her drive away again, then helped Tyler with homework while Mia video chatted with friends. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, mind racing. Why was I so bothered by this? Lisa had a medical problem. She was getting treatment. I should be supportive, not suspicious. But the doubts wouldn't leave. The new clothes, the perfume, the defensiveness, the lack of insurance claims. No, I was being paranoid. Work stress was making me imagine problems where none existed. Lisa and I had been together 15 years. We'd weathered job losses, family deaths, a miscarriage that nearly broke us. We didn't lie to each other, did we? By the 3rd week, a pattern had emerged. Every Thursday, Lisa would grow increasingly agitated. She'd pack her bag with grim determination, kiss us goodbye with what felt like guilt, and return Friday morning looking exhausted but offering few details about the experience. How can they diagnose anything if you're not actually sleeping? I asked after her 3rd session. They're getting some data, she said vaguely. Dr. Peterson says these things take time. Maybe I should call Dr. Peterson, get a better understanding of what's happening. No! The vehemence of her response startled both of us. She moderated her tone. I mean, I can handle it. You don't need to get involved. I'm your husband. I'm already involved. You know what I mean. She stood abruptly, taking her coffee mug to the sink. I'm going to shower. Tuesday of the 4th week, I made a decision. Or rather, the decision made itself when I was paying bills online, and once again saw no insurance claims for Lisa's treatment. I called Harbinger Insurance during my lunch break, sitting in my car in the office parking lot for privacy. Harbinger Insurance, this is Rachel. How can I help you today? Hi, Rachel. I'm calling to check on some claims for my wife. She's been having weekly sleep studies at the University Sleep Center, and I don't see any claims in our online portal. I'd be happy to help you with that, Mr. Martinez. Can I have your member ID? I rattled off the 16-digit number I'd memorized years ago. All right, I have your account pulled up. What dates were these sleep studies? I gave her the dates, every Thursday for the past 3 weeks, with another scheduled in 2 days. I heard typing, then silence. More typing. More silence. Mr. Martinez? I'm not showing any claims or authorizations for sleep studies under your wife's name? My stomach dropped like I'd crested the first hill of a roller coaster. Maybe they haven't been submitted yet? Sir, sleep studies require pre-authorization from your insurance. It's an expensive procedure, usually running between $2,000 and $5,000 per session. We would have a record of the authorization before the procedure, not after. 2 to 5,000 per session, 4 sessions. We were talking about potentially $20,000 of medical procedures that didn't exist in the insurance system. Has your wife's doctor submitted the referral? Rachel continued. I thought she had. She said Dr. Peterson referred her. I see a Dr. Helen Peterson in our system, primary care physician for Lisa Martinez. But there are no recent referrals from her office. No referrals at all in the past 6 months, actually. My mouth felt dry. Could there be a mistake? Maybe filed under a different name? I'm looking at all activity for your policy. The last claim for Mrs. Martinez was her annual physical in November. I see. My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. What if she's paying out of pocket? That's certainly possible, but unusual for such expensive procedures. And if she intended to submit for reimbursement later, we'd still recommend getting pre-authorization to ensure coverage. Right, of course. I gripped the steering wheel with my free hand. Thank you, Rachel. I'll check with my wife. Is there anything else I can help you with today, Mr. Martinez? No. Thank you. I sat in my car for a long time after hanging up, watching people come and go from the office building. Normal people living normal lives, not discovering that their wives had invented elaborate medical procedures. Because that's what this was, wasn't it? Lisa wasn't going to sleep studies. She was going somewhere to do something every Thursday night. The obvious answer stared me in the face, but I couldn't accept it. Not yet. Not without proof. There had to be another explanation. Maybe she was embarrassed about the cost and was paying cash. Maybe there was a different facility that didn't work with insurance. Maybe I was making excuses for something inexcusable. That night, I watched Lisa like she was a stranger wearing my wife's face. She made dinner chicken stir-fry, overcooked because she was distracted. She helped Tyler with his science project, but her mind was clearly elsewhere. She sat on the couch beside me while we watched TV, but she didn't laugh at the jokes or comment on the plot holes like usual. You okay? I asked during a commercial. You seem distant. Just tired, she said, the excuse worn thin from overuse. And dreading Thursday. Maybe you should take a break. Skip this week. I can't. Dr. Peterson says consistency is important for the data. Dr. Peterson. Who hadn't made any referrals in 6 months? Lisa, I started, then stopped. What would I say? I know you're lying. Where do you really go on Thursdays? Who are you with? What? She looked at me, and for a moment I saw fear in her eyes. Nothing. Just, I love you. I love you too, she said, but it sounded like a question. Wednesday night, I made my decision. I'd bought the tile trackers on a whim after our Disney trip, when the airline lost our luggage for 2 days. They were small, about the size of a key fob, with a battery life of a year. I'd tested them around the house, impressed by their accuracy. Now I held one in my palm, weighing my options. Was I really going to track my own wife? Spy on her like she was a teenager breaking curfew? But what choice did I have? Confront her directly? She'd just lie again, Maybe get better at covering her tracks. Hire a private investigator? That felt too much like something from a bad movie. No, I needed to know the truth, and this was the simplest way to get it. Thursday afternoon, while Lisa was in the shower, I slipped into our bedroom. Her overnight bag sat on the bed, already packed. I unzipped it carefully, noting the position of everything. Pajamas on top, the sheep ones I'd bought her for Christmas. Toiletries in the side pocket. Phone charger coiled neatly. I found the inner pocket, small and zippered, perfect for hiding a tracker. My hands shook as I placed it inside, zipping it closed. The whole operation took less than 30 seconds. What are you doing? I spun around to find Mia in the doorway, still in her soccer uniform, studying me with those sharp eyes she'd inherited from her mother. Just helping Mom pack, I said, trying to sound casual. You're being weird, Dad. Thanks, kiddo. Don't you have homework? She gave me a long look, too knowing for 12 years old, then shrugged and left. I re-zipped Lisa's bag, making sure everything looked undisturbed, and escaped to my office. The goodbye ritual that evening felt like a performance. Lisa hugged the kids, promised to text, kissed me at the door. I searched her face for signs of guilt, but saw only the tired anxiety that had become her default expression. Drive safe, I said. Love you. Love you too. As soon as her car turned the corner, I pulled out my phone and opened the Tile app. The tracker showed her location as our driveway, then began moving as the app updated. I watched the little dot travel down our street, turn onto the main road, head toward the university. Dad, can we make popcorn? Tyler asked. Sure, buddy. Give me just a minute. I watched Lisa's dot move through familiar streets. She was taking the route to the university, just as she should be. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe she really was going to sleep studies, and there was some administrative mix-up with the insurance. The dot approached the university campus. My heart rate slowed. See? Everything was fine. I was paranoid for nothing. Then the dot passed the university. Dad, the popcorn? Coming! I shoved the phone in my pocket and helped Tyler with the microwave, my mind racing. Maybe she missed the turn. Maybe there was traffic. Maybe. After getting the kids settled with their snack and a movie, I checked again. The dot had continued through downtown, past the medical district, into an area I didn't recognize. It finally stopped at something called Riverside Apartment Complex. I stared at the screen, zooming in as far as the app would allow. Apartments. Not a medical facility. Not a hospital. Apartments. Building C, the app showed, near the back of the complex. For the next 2 hours, I went through the motions of normal evening routine. Helped Tyler practice violin, badly. Reminded Mia 3 times to finish her homework. Made them both brush teeth and get ready for bed. The dot never moved. Where's Mom again? Tyler asked as I tucked him in. At the sleep doctor, remember? Oh, yeah. Do you think they'll fix her? I hope so, buddy. Me too. She's been grumpy. Kids noticed everything, even when you thought you were protecting them. By 11 p.m., with both kids asleep, I sat in my dark living room with my laptop, researching Riverside Apartment Complex. It was nice, but not luxury, mostly 2-bedroom units, decent reviews, reasonable rent. The kind of place young professionals lived, or people having affairs met. The thought hit me like a physical blow. An affair. Lisa was having an affair. No. I couldn't jump to conclusions. Maybe she was visiting a sick friend. Maybe the sleep center had moved. Maybe there was a satellite facility. But I knew. Deep down, in that part of your gut that recognizes truth even when your brain denies it, I knew. The tracker still showed her at the same location at midnight. At 1 a.m., at 2 a.m. when I finally tried to sleep, failing miserably. I dozed fitfully, waking every hour to check the tracker. Always the same location, Building C Riverside Apartments. At 5 a.m., I gave up on sleep, showered, and got dressed. Business casual jeans and a polo shirt, non-threatening, like a husband picking up his wife from a medical appointment. I had one stop to make first. The Dunkin' Donuts on Maple Street had just opened. The teenager behind the counter looked as exhausted as I felt. "What can I get you?" "Large coffee and a dozen assorted donuts, please." She perked up slightly. "Having a party?" "Something like that," I said, paying with cash from the emergency stash we kept in the kitchen. The drive to Riverside Apartments took 12 minutes. The complex was quiet in the pre-dawn darkness, most windows dark. I found Building C easily enough, a 3-story structure with external stairs. Lisa's Honda sat in a visitor space, frost covering the windshield. The tracker now showed her exact location, near Unit 305, second floor. I sat in my car for a moment, engine running, heater blowing. The coffee cooled in my hand while the donuts filled the car with their sweet smell. This was it. The moment of truth. Once I knocked on that door, everything would change. 15 years of marriage, 2 children, a life built together. It all hung in the balance. But I had to know. I turned off the engine, grabbed my props, and climbed the stairs to the second floor. The hallway was carpeted, muffling my footsteps. Apartment 305 sat at the end, a small welcome mat in front of the door. I raised my hand to knock, then hesitated. What if I was wrong? What if there was an innocent explanation? Then I remembered the insurance calls, the lies, the Thursday night routine that made no medical sense. I knocked. 3 firm raps that seemed to echo in the quiet morning. I heard movement inside. Muffled voices. Was that Lisa? Footsteps approaching. The door opened to reveal a man. He was tall, probably 6'2", with the kind of muscles that came from dedicated gym time rather than actual labor. Dark hair stuck up at odd angles, and he wore only boxers and a tight t-shirt that showed off his physique. The apartment behind him was dimly lit, but I could see enough. Modern furniture, big TV, the typical bachelor pad trying to look sophisticated. "Yeah?" His voice was rough with sleep, annoyed at the early morning disruption. I held up the coffee and donuts, forcing my face into a friendly smile. "Oh, this isn't the sleep lab? I'm here to pick up my wife." I watched his face change in real-time confusion, recognition, then pure panic. His eyes widened, darting back into the apartment, then to me, then to the items in my hands. "Your wife," he managed. "Lisa Martinez." I pointed toward the parking lot, keeping my voice cheerful. "That's her Honda right there. She said she was at a sleep study at the University Sleep Center." "Is this not the right place?" He stood frozen, mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Behind him, from deeper in the apartment, I heard the voice that had whispered, "I love you," to me just 12 hours ago. "Who is it, babe?" Babe. That single word hit harder than any physical blow. She used to call me babe, back when we were young and stupid and thought love conquered everything. Back before Thursday night sleep studies and men in boxers answering doors at 6 a.m. The man, I refused to give him the dignity of a name in my mind, looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. I took advantage of his paralysis and pushed past him into the apartment. "Lisa!" I called out, my voice echoing off the walls. "Lisa, your sleep study is over!" The apartment was exactly what I'd expected. Hardwood floors that tried to look expensive, a kitchen with granite countertops and stainless steel appliances, a leather couch that probably came from a rent-to-own place. Lisa's overnight bag sat by the door like it belonged there, and her shoes, The comfortable flats she wore for long days were placed neatly on a shoe rack. So domestic, so comfortable. How many Thursday nights had she spent here? Lisa emerged from what was obviously the bedroom, and the sight of her nearly brought me to my knees. She wore a man's robe, blue terry cloth, too big for her frame, tied loosely at the waist. Her hair was messed, makeup smeared, and she had that just woken up look I knew so well. Except I wasn't the one who'd woken up next to her. She saw me and froze. Every drop of color drained from her face so fast I thought she might faint. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Dan, what are you... Picking you up from your sleep study. I held up the coffee and donuts like they were evidence in a murder trial. With breakfast. But this seems to be someone's apartment. Did the sleep lab relocate? Maybe they're trying a new home-based treatment program? Dan, I can explain. Explain to everyone. The performance wasn't over. In fact, the most important part was just beginning. I turned and headed back to the hallway, my heart pounding, but my mind crystal clear. Bang, bang, bang! I pounded on apartment 304 with the side of my fist, making sure the sound carried down the hallway. I heard scrambling inside, confused voices, then footsteps approaching. The door opened to reveal an elderly man in a bathrobe, holding a baseball bat like he was ready to defend his home. Excuse me, I said brightly, holding up my purchases. Has anyone seen the University Sleep Center? My wife's supposed to be there. The man lowered his bat, confusion replacing suspicion. His wife appeared behind him, curlers in her gray hair. Sleep center? He looked at his wife, then back at me. Son, this is an apartment building. That's weird? I made sure my voice carried. Because my wife's been coming here every Thursday for sleep studies, doctor's orders, for her chronic insomnia. The man's wife pushed forward, her sharp eyes taking in the scene. Me with my coffee and donuts, the open door of 305, where Lisa now stood in the doorway, wearing a man's robe, the muscular young man behind her looking like he wanted to disappear. Harold, she said slowly, I don't think this young man's wife has been going to any sleep study. Medical treatments? I continued, moving to the next door. Very important medical treatments. Bang, bang, bang on apartment 306. A young couple answered, the woman holding a baby monitor, both looking alarmed. Sorry to wake you, I said. I'm looking for the sleep lab. My wife Lisa has been sleeping here for medical reasons, every Thursday, all night, for her insomnia. More doors were opening now. The hallway was filling with curious residents in various states of undress, pajamas, robes, one guy in just sweatpants. Perfect. The more witnesses, the better. Has anyone seen Dr. Peterson? I asked the growing crowd. She's the one who referred my wife here. An apartment door at the far end opened, and a woman in scrubs stepped out. For a moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, there really was some medical explanation. But she looked as confused as everyone else. I'm a nurse, she said. There's no medical facility here. This is just apartments. Lisa Martinez, I shouted down the hallway. Where's the sleep lab? Lisa had stepped fully into the hallway now, still wearing that damned robe, her face a mask of horror and desperation. The man, her babe, had thrown on basketball shorts and followed her out, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else in the world. Dan, stop, Lisa pleaded. Please, let's just go home and talk. Stop? I'm just looking for the medical facility you've been at every Thursday. I turned to address my growing audience. She's been very dedicated to her treatment, never missed a week. A woman in curlers, not the elderly man's wife, a different one, stepped forward. Honey, she said to me with the kind of sympathy that cut deep, ain't no medical nothing in this building. That's apartment 305, and that's Shane who lives there. Shane. Now he had a name. Shane, who lived in apartment 305 where my wife had been receiving treatment for her insomnia. Well, there must be some mistake, I said. Because our insurance company says, oh, wait, that's right. There are no insurance claims. Funny how that works. Murmurs ran through the crowd. Someone, a young guy with sleeve tattoos, had his phone out, definitely recording. Good. Let the whole world see. Shane made the mistake of trying to take control. He stepped forward, reaching for my arm. Dude, you need to leave. I yanked away, holding up my phone. Leave? I'm picking up my patient. I mean, my wife, from her medical treatment. I showed the screen to anyone who cared to look. See? I tracked her here for her safety, in case something happened during her medical procedure. And look, the sleep lab is right here in apartment 305. You tracked her? Someone said. For her safety, I repeated. Medical procedures can be dangerous, but apparently not as dangerous as Shane's apartment. A woman in a pantsuit came rushing up the stairs, keys jangling. She had the harried look of someone who'd been woken with an emergency call. What is going on here? She demanded. I'm the building manager. Oh, thank God, I said. I'm looking for the university sleep center. My wife's been coming here every Thursday night for sleep studies. That's her car in the visitor lot. I pointed through the window at the end of the hall. But everyone says this is just apartments. The manager's eyes narrowed as she took in the scene. Me with my coffee and donuts, Lisa in Shane's robe, Shane himself looking like he wanted to die, and the crowd of residents watching like it was the best reality TV they'd ever seen. Sir, this is a residential building. We have no medical facilities. Then why has my wife been sleeping here for medical reasons? I asked, making sure my voice carried. Our insurance doesn't show any claims, but she's here every Thursday, like clockwork, for her insomnia. Maybe she found a cure, someone in the crowd muttered, earning a few snickers. Lisa finally broke. She ducked back into Shane's apartment and emerged seconds later with her overnight bag, trying to push through the crowd toward the stairs. I followed, keeping up my performance. Found her! The sleep study patient! Apparently the treatment is in apartment 305. Very experimental, very exclusive. We made it to the parking lot, where even more residents were watching from their balconies. The February morning was cold, but I barely felt it. Lisa fumbled with her keys, hands shaking so badly she dropped them. Dan, get in your car, she said, her voice breaking. We'll talk at home. Talk about what? Your amazing sleep doctor who works out of a one-bedroom apartment? Dr. Shane? I glanced back at the building. Shane had retreated inside, probably already packing to move. Smart man. Oh, Lisa? I reached into my jacket pocket, pulling out the manila envelope I'd prepared during my many sleepless Thursday nights. While you were at your sleep study, I had some free time. You know what I did with it? Dan, no. Divorce papers. I set them on her windshield. The morning breeze tried to take them, but they were heavy with significance. Turns out insurance fraud is grounds for divorce in Minnesota. So is adultery. My lawyer, yeah, I already have one, says I've got a pretty solid case. The crowd was growing. I could see phones pointed at us from multiple balconies. Someone was definitely live streaming this. 15 years, Lisa, I said, and for the first time my voice cracked. 15 years, 2 kids, and this is how it ends? With fake sleep studies? She was sobbing now, ugly crying that made her mascara run in black rivers down her cheeks. The woman I'd promised to love forever looked small and pathetic in another man's robe in a parking lot full of strangers. But don't worry, I continued, loud enough for everyone to hear. I'm sure Shane can help with your insomnia. Seems like you sleep great here. Every Thursday. Very consistent treatment plan. I turned to address the crowd one last time. Everyone have a great morning. And if you need sleep studies, apparently, apartment 305 offers them. No insurance required. Ask for Dr. Shane. I got in my car and drove away, leaving Lisa standing in the parking lot, surrounded by witnesses to her humiliation. In my rearview mirror, I saw her sink to her knees beside her car, the divorce papers fluttering on her windshield. The drive home was surreal. My phone buzzed constantly. Calls from Lisa, I assumed, but I didn't check. I called my mother instead, asking her to pick up the kids from school and keep them for the weekend. Mijo, what's wrong? She asked, concern thick in her voice. Lisa and I need to work through some things, I said carefully. Can you just tell the kids we need some grown-up time? Of course. But Daniel, are you okay? No, Mom, but I will be. By the time I got home, my phone had exploded. Not just calls from Lisa, but texts from friends, family, numbers I didn't recognize. I finally looked at my messages and understood why. The video was already online. Man exposees wife's fake sleep study affair was trending on local Twitter. Someone had edited it with dramatic music and captions. Wife claims to have insomnia, goes to sleep studies every Thursday. Husband brings coffee and donuts to pick her up. Plot twist. She's at her boyfriend's apartment. The comments were brutal, but oddly supportive of me. Not the coffee and donuts. Every Thursday? That's not insomnia, that's a schedule. Shane about to lose all his CrossFit clients. Imagine being the neighbors just trying to sleep. King brought receipts and breakfast. Wait. CrossFit? I scrolled through more comments until I found it. Someone had identified Shane as a trainer at Iron Fit Gym downtown. Lisa had started going to CrossFit classes 6 months ago. Said it helped with stress. I laughed, but it came out bitter. Stress relief indeed. Lisa came home around 2 p.m. I was sitting at the kitchen table, our table, where this all started, with the divorce papers spread out in front of me. I'd already made copies, already filed them with the court. Minnesota allowed for immediate filing in cases of adultery with evidence. She'd changed clothes, tried to fix her makeup, but her eyes were still swollen from crying. She stood in the doorway, like she didn't know if she was allowed in her own home. Sit, I said. She sat across from me in her usual spot. The scene felt like a mockery of all our morning coffees, all our family dinners, all our late-night conversations at this table. How long? I asked. She stared at her hands. 4 months. 4 months. While I was killing myself with the Henderson Project, she was sleeping with her CrossFit trainer. While I was missing the kids' events for work, she was inventing medical conditions. Why sleep studies? Why not just say you were going out with friends? Because you'd want to come sometimes, or the kids would want to come. But medical stuff? She shrugged. No one questions medical stuff. I called the insurance company. Her head snapped up. You what? I was worried about the bills. Thought we should know what we were in for financially. I laughed humorlessly. Imagine my surprise when they'd never heard of your treatment. I was going to tell you. When? After you'd spent our entire marriage having Thursday night treatments? After the kids graduated? On my deathbed? It wasn't supposed to happen, she said quietly. Shane and I, we just connected. You were always working, and I felt invisible, and he made me feel seen. So you created an elaborate medical fraud? I panicked. That first night I told you I was going to a late CrossFit class, but then it got later and later and I couldn't explain being out until morning, so I said I'd gone to the emergency room for my headache. And then you were so concerned and you wanted to follow up, and the lie just grew. Into sleep studies, I know how it sounds. It sounds like you chose lies over truth, like you chose Shane over our family. I never meant for it to go this far. Yet here we are. I pushed the papers toward her. Sign them. Dan, please, can't we try counseling? For the kids? Counseling. I stood, pacing to the window that looked out on our snow-covered backyard. The swing set we'd built together stood like a monument to better times. Should we tell the counselor about your sleep studies? About how dedicated you were to your treatment? I made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk. A mistake is being late to a recital. This is 15 years of marriage thrown away for a guy named Shane who lives in apartment 305. She signed the papers. What else could she do? I had her on video, in another man's robe, surrounded by witnesses. I had the tracker data. I had the lack of insurance claims. I had everything. What do we tell the kids? She asked quietly. The truth. Age-appropriate version. Mommy made some bad choices and hurt Daddy's feelings. Mommy and Daddy won't be living together anymore, but we both still love them. They'll hate me. Maybe. That's not my problem anymore. She flinched. You're enjoying this. No, I said honestly. I'm not enjoying anything about this, but I'm not going to pretend it didn't happen either. You made choices. These are the consequences. She stood to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I am sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. Yet you did. Every Thursday, for 4 months. After she left, I sat in the empty house listening to the furnace cycle on and off. The kids would be home tomorrow. I'd have to explain why Mommy wasn't here, why she was staying with Grandma and Grandpa Martinez for a while. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Saw the video. Same thing happened to me last year. It gets better. Stay strong. Then another. You're a legend for how you handled that. Coffee and donuts was genius. And another. Your wife is trash. You deserve better. I turned the phone off. I didn't want to be a legend or a meme or whatever the internet decided I was. I just wanted my life back. The one where my wife went to real doctors for real problems and came home to our real life. But that life was gone, exposed as false as Lisa's sleep studies. The next few weeks were a blur of lawyers, custody arrangements, and divided assets. Patricia, my lawyer, was worth every penny. Your Honor, she said at our hearing. Mrs. Martinez constructed an elaborate medical fraud to cover her affair. She claimed to be receiving treatment for chronic insomnia while actually conducting an extramarital relationship. This represents both marital misconduct and potential insurance fraud. Lisa's lawyer, a nervous young man who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, tried to argue that I'd violated her privacy. My client's personal choices. Personal choices? Patricia interrupted. Your client lied about medical treatment. She defrauded her husband's trust and potentially committed insurance fraud. Mr. Martinez brought her breakfast because he believed she was at a medical facility. The fact that multiple witnesses saw her at her paramour's apartment is not Mr. Martinez's fault. The judge, a woman in her 60s who looked like she'd seen everything, reviewed the evidence with barely concealed disgust. Mrs. Martinez, she said finally, you created an elaborate deception involving false medical claims to facilitate an extramarital affair. The court finds this behavior demonstrates significant marital misconduct. I got the house, primary custody. Lisa got weekends and Wednesday dinners, and no alimony. Lisa had to move back with her parents, aged 65 and 67, who were mortified by the whole situation. Shane, the CrossFit trainer, became infamous overnight. His Instagram went from 10K followers to 50K, but they weren't the kind of followers you wanted. The comments on his workout videos were brutal. Great form. Do you teach sleep studies too? Is home wrecking part of the wheel odd? Thursday night special? Break up a marriage, get 20% off. Iron Fit Jim terminated his contract within a week. He tried to start his own personal training business, but the Sleep Study Shane nickname followed him everywhere. Last I heard, he'd moved to Arizona to start over. Lisa tried damage control on Facebook, posting vague inspirational quotes about new chapters and learning from mistakes. But the internet is unforgiving. Someone had created a Lisa's Sleep Study Facebook page that posted memes every Thursday. Picture of a bed, Thursday night medical treatment, picture of coffee and donuts, approved by 4 out of 5 cheaters. Picture of an apartment building, University Sleep Center, Riverside campus. She eventually deleted all her social media. The kids struggled, as kids do when their world explodes. Mia, sharp as ever, figured out most of it on her own. Mom was cheating, wasn't she? She asked one night, helping me load the dishwasher. That's between your mom and me, I said carefully. Dad, I'm not stupid. I saw the video. What video? She rolled her eyes. Everyone at school saw it. Madison's older sister showed us. Mom was at some guy's apartment, not a doctor. Mia, it's okay, she said, but her voice was hard. I'm mad at her too. Tyler, thankfully, was young enough to accept simpler explanations. Mom made bad choices, seemed to satisfy him, though he asked heartbreaking questions sometimes. Dad, did Mom's insomnia get better? Yes, buddy, she's sleeping fine now. Then why can't she come home? It's complicated, Ty. Everything's complicated now, he said sadly. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, I met Sarah. She was Tyler's nurse when he broke his wrist falling off his bike. Pretty in an understated way, with laugh lines around her eyes and an easy smile. Rough divorce? She asked, while casting Tyler's arm, noting I was listed as the primary contact. You could say that. It involved fake sleep studies. She looked up, surprised. Wait, are you coffee and donuts guy? I groaned. Is that what people are calling me? You're a legend at the hospital. We had a whole discussion about it during break. Consensus was you handled it perfectly. I brought breakfast to pick up my cheating wife. Not exactly heroic. You exposed a liar with style, she corrected. Plus donuts. Everyone loves a man who brings donuts. We started dating slowly. Coffee first, then dinner, then family activities with the kids. Sarah was patient with my trust issues, understanding when I'd have moments of panic. Conference in Chicago next month, she mentioned casually over dinner. 2 nights, cardiac care updates. I tensed involuntarily. Dan, she said gently, I can show you the registration, the hotel booking, the conference schedule, whatever you need. I don't need... Yes, you do. And that's okay. Trust rebuilds slowly. She was right. I did check the conference website, did note the hotel information. Old habits, new scars. Find everything, she asked when I came back from my laptop. Conference looks legitimate. Good speakers on the schedule. See? No sleep studies required. She grinned. Though if you want to bring me coffee and donuts when I get back... Don't push it. 6 months after the divorce, Riverside Apartments became famous for different reasons. The manager, entrepreneurial spirit awakened, started offering sleep study specials, Thursday night rates for couples needing insomnia treatment. It became a running joke, then an actual marketing campaign. Where quality sleep happens, their new slogan proclaimed with a wink emoji. Apartment 305 was the most requested unit. Lisa and I found a rhythm with co-parenting. Polite exchanges at pickups, brief texts about schedules, Nothing more. She was dating someone new, a divorced dad from her single-parent support group. I hoped she was honest with him. But that wasn't my concern anymore. "How's the insomnia?" I asked once. Couldn't help myself. She flushed. "Dan, just checking. Want to make sure you're getting proper treatment." "I deserve that." "Yes, you do." A year after the coffee and donuts incident, a documentary filmmaker reached out. They were doing a piece on viral justice and wanted to interview me. I declined, but they used the video anyway, analyzing it with psychologists and relationship experts. "What we see here," one expert said, "is a man who channeled his pain into performance art. The coffee and donuts weren't just props. They were symbols of care turned into weapons of exposure." Pretentious, but not entirely wrong. The kids were doing better. Mia had channeled her anger into soccer, making varsity as a freshman. Tyler joined the robotics club, building things and taking them apart, trying to understand how they worked. Maybe trying to understand how his family broke apart too. "Dad," Tyler said one evening, working on his robot, "do you think you'll get married again?" "Maybe someday. Would that be okay?" "I guess, as long as she doesn't have insomnia." "Tyler, I'm just saying, sleep studies are expensive." Even my 9-year-old was making jokes about it. Sarah and I were taking things slow, but it was good. Real. She stayed over sometimes, but never on Thursdays. That was probably psychological on my part, but she understood. "Bad associations," she said simply. "We'll make Thursday something else. Taco night, Netflix night, anything but sleep study night." "You know I tracked her, right? Like a stalker?" "Like a husband who knew he was being lied to," she corrected. There's a difference between violating privacy and confirming deception. The internet had opinions about that. The internet has opinions about everything. Doesn't make them right. 2 years later, I ran into Shane at a Twins game. He was with a new girlfriend, looked like he'd gained weight, lost some of the CrossFit edge. He saw me, started to turn away, then seemed to change his mind. "Dan," he said, approaching carefully. "Hey, Shane. Look, I wanted to say I'm sorry. About everything. I knew she was married, and I didn't care. That was wrong." I studied him. He seemed genuine, tired, older than his years. "We all made choices," I said finally. "You two just made worse ones." "Yeah?" He shifted uncomfortably. For what it's worth, it didn't last. 3 weeks after everything. She ended it. 3 weeks. She destroyed our marriage for something that lasted 3 more weeks. "Hope you're doing better," he said. "I am. You?" "Getting there. Moved back from Arizona. Teaching at the Y now. Keeps me humble." We parted without shaking hands, but without animosity either. Just 2 men who'd been on opposite sides of a marital explosion, carrying our respective shrapnel. The tile tracker still sits in my desk drawer. I can't bring myself to throw it away. Sometimes I take it out, hold it, remember the weight of that decision. The moment I chose truth over comfortable lies. Sarah found it once while looking for stamps. "Your smoking gun," she said, holding it up. "My insurance policy," I corrected. "Do you ever regret it? Tracking her?" "No, I regret that I had to. I regret that she made it necessary. But finding out the truth? Never. Even though it hurt. Especially because it hurt. Living a lie would have hurt more, just spread out over years instead of compressed into one morning." She put the tracker back carefully. "For what it's worth, I'm glad you found out. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here." True. Every ending is also a beginning, even if it comes with coffee and donuts and a performance in an apartment hallway. The kids are teenagers now. Mia's applying to colleges, wants to study journalism. Investigative reporting, she specifies. Exposing the truth. Wonder where she got that idea. Tyler's building a robot for the state competition. He's calling it the Truth Tracker. Kids process trauma in interesting ways. Lisa remarried last summer. Her new husband seems nice enough, stable, boring in a good way. The kids report he's fine and whatever, which is probably the best we can hope for. Does he know? Mia asked after the wedding. About the sleep studies? I'm sure your mom told him her version. What's your version? The truth. Thursday nights, apartment 305, Shane the CrossFit trainer, fake medical condition. And coffee and donuts. Can't forget those. Dad, would you do it again? The same way? I thought about it. The public humiliation, the viral video, the destruction of privacy on both sides. The kids seeing their mother at her worst, their father at his most calculatingly cruel. The years of therapy, the trust issues, the jokes that still followed us. Yes, I said finally. Maybe with better coffee, though. That Dunkin' stuff was terrible. She laughed, and it sounded like forgiveness. The truth about that morning isn't just about catching a cheating spouse. It's about the moment you realize the life you're living is a lie, and you have to decide, stay comfortable in the deception, or blow it all up with the truth. I chose explosion. I chose coffee and donuts at dawn, a tile tracker in a bag, and a performance that exposed everything. Some called it genius. Some called it cruel. Some called it justice. I call it Thursday morning. The morning I stopped believing in sleep studies and started believing in myself again. Because here's what Lisa never understood. It wasn't about the affair. Affairs happen. People fall out of love, find connection elsewhere, make selfish choices. That's human nature, ugly but comprehensible. It was about the lies. The elaborate, ongoing, medically themed lies. The Thursday night routine that turned our marriage into a scheduled deception. The way she looked me in the eye and complained about insurance coverage for treatment that didn't exist. She could have said she needed space. She could have asked for counseling. She could have filed for divorce honestly. She could have even had an affair and come clean when the guilt got too heavy. Instead, she invented a chronic medical condition and used our family's concern for her well-being as cover for betrayal. That's what I exposed that morning in Building C. Not just an affair, but the willingness to weaponize love against itself. To use my concern for her health as the very tool of deception. The coffee and donuts weren't just props. They were symbols of every morning I'd brought her coffee in bed, every thoughtful gesture over 15 years, every small act of love she'd accepted while planning her Thursday night treatments. So yes, I'd do it again. Maybe without the viral video and internet fame. Maybe with better timing for the kids' sake. But the core act, exposing the truth in all its ugly glory, that was necessary. Because Lisa taught me something valuable. When someone shows you they can lie that elaborately, that consistently, that medically, believe them. They're showing you exactly who they are. And when you discover the truth, don't hide it. Don't protect their reputation at the cost of your sanity. Don't pretend the sleep studies were real just to keep the peace. Bring coffee and donuts. Make a scene. Let the neighbors see. Let the internet judge. Let the truth be as public as the lies were private. The Martinez method isn't about revenge. It's about revelation. It's about standing in your truth even when your hands shake and your voice cracks. It's about choosing the hard honesty of a parking lot confrontation over the slow poison of pretended ignorance. Trust, but verify. When the insurance shows no claims, investigate. When Thursday nights don't add up, do the math. And when you find her at apartment 305 instead of the university sleep center, don't go quietly. Go with breakfast. Go with witnesses. Go with the knowledge that the truth, however painful, is better than the prettiest lie. Because in the end, we all get the sleep we deserve. Lisa's sleeping fine now, I'm sure. No more insomnia, no more Thursday night medical procedures. And me? I sleep the deep sleep of the vindicated. In my own bed, in my own house, with my truth intact and my coffee still terrible, but honestly so. The sleep study is over. The truth study continues. Every Thursday night for the rest of my life.